Hello everyone, I'm just making this video to help you guys in case you're leaving Panama late and you need to pay your fine or your, as they call it here, the multa. Now, the multa is a fine that you have to pay if you're leaving late. Late is, for most people, 90 days. So you're allowed to stay in Panama for 90 days. If you're leaving later than 90 days, normally you'll have to pay a fine. By the way, for the United States and Canada, that's 180 days. It's not 90 days. It's 180. So it's different for different countries. US and Canada being the exception, but for most countries, it's 90 days. Now, you're leaving late, and that could be you're leaving late. You're not late at this moment, but you're looking at the date when your flight is leaving, and you've calculated that that's going to be late. Okay, so if you know that's going to be late, you can actually go ahead and pay your fine now. You don't need to leave it until you're actually physically late. You can go ahead, since you know you're going to be late, you can go ahead and pay that fine now. So what you need to do is you need to go to the Central Immigration Office. They open at 7 a.m., which is very early, and believe me, they are very busy at 7 a.m. I've just been there today, and it was absolutely rammed wall to wall. I got there at 1 minute past 7, and the doors were already open, and the place was absolutely crowded. So I would say get there before 7 a.m. and I would imagine there was probably a queue outside, but you're looking at about 4 hours. That's how long the process is going to take you end to end, and most of it's just going to be waiting around. All right, so when you get there, you don't need to normally go straight in, because actually there's some little stalls outside. Just if you're facing the door, the stalls are generally on the left-hand side, and there's a number of them on the side of the footpath, the curb, and these stalls are selling the paperwork and things that you need to be able to pay your fine. So first up, don't go inside and waste your time in the crowd. First up, go straight over to those stalls and get the paperwork. Now, what you'll need to bring with you when you're going to pay your fine is two things. One physical thing, which is your passport. You absolutely need to have a physical copy of your passport. And the second thing you're going to need is an email confirmation from your flight showing the date and everything else that you're leaving. So you need basically your flight ticket with you, and that doesn't have to be printed out. That can be an email. And then what you'll do is you'll go over to these stalls, and they'll have WhatsApp addresses and WhatsApp phone numbers and email addresses, and they'll share those with you, and then you can send them that documentation, that flight information, and they'll print that out for you. And they'll also scan a copy of your passport and print that out for you, and they'll also supply you with photographs with a white background that you need to have for this process. They'll provide everything for you, and it will cost about $20 for that service. Of course, if you're very very diligent, you can go ahead and prepare all those yourselves. You can take your own photos, you can print them out, you can do all that. But the chances are you might not have access to printers and things. So the easiest thing to do is arrive before 7 a.m., like I'd say 20 minutes before 7 a.m. and or sometime like that, and get these guys to process that for you. So you have all the paperwork in your hand while you walk in the door at 7 a.m. Now, as I say, there probably will be a queue. Then once you get inside the door, the first thing you need to do is go straight downstairs. Don't hang about upstairs. Nothing's happening upstairs for you. That's for different people. Now you go straight downstairs, and when you get to the bottom floor, you'll see like a little cafe and various things like that. Don't bother with that. What I would do is just go look for the queue. There's a queue of people that are getting tickets, and there's a lady at the top or someone at the top that's handing out tickets, and what she'll ask you is she'll say, what are you here for? And then you just tell her that you're here to pay the multa for staying too long, and she will give you a ticket number, and that ticket number will have a letter at the beginning, and then it'll have about 3 numbers after the letter. So then once you have the ticket in your hand, you can see the screens. There are going to be screens up all over the place, and they're going to have a strip of the numbers that are being called. And once your number is called, it tells you what what kind of gate, not gate, but what little booth to go to. There's all these little booths with people working in them, processing various different things. And once you get your ticket in your hand, you wait for your number, and then when the number comes up on the screen, it'll tell you what booth to go to. And then at that point in time, you want to get to that booth as quickly as possible, because they don't wait around. And you know, you could the process of waiting for your number to come up is like 3 hours. Now, I've been there before for something else, and it was maybe an hour and a half. So that was on a Friday, but today was a Monday. Now, I think Mondays must be extremely busy. But in all, my trip there, including getting my documents from the lady who printed them out, and you know, until I had my actual receipt in my hand, was a 4 hour process. And if you were to miss anything, if you were to miss being called, you'd have to get a new ticket and wait all over again for your new ticket number to come up on the screen. So that's basically it. So once you get called, once your number comes up on the screen, then what you do is you make your way over to the booth, and you present all your documentation. You present your passport, the printouts, and she might ask you to confirm that you're there to pay your multa. Of course, you tell her that you are, and what she'll do is she'll do some processing, this, that, and the other, and she'll give you some documents, and she'll tell you to go over to a cashier. Now then, and she'll wait for you. Okay, so you don't have to get a new number. So she'll wait for you. She'll send you over to the cashier. You take your documents there. You pay them $50, and then the cashier will give you a receipt for the payment. You take that back to the lady who was doing the processing a moment ago, and then she wraps up and she gives you some portion of that document, and then she gives you your passport back. And once you have those documents and your passports, you're good to go. You can leave. And then once you're in the airport, you show your passport and your documents at the airport, and they will of course look at that, and then there won't be any problems. Now, if you were to show up at the airport without that slip, without that receipt showing that you had paid your multa, you would probably be banned from the country for 5 years. You could miss your flight, but normally they'll let you get your flight, but you will be banned most likely for 5 years, because what will happen is they'll say you've got 5 days to pay this, even though you're out of the country. But how can you pay it when you're out of the country? So it doesn't really make sense. Especially when, even if you have friends in the country, how can you send them to the immigration office to pay it for you when they don't have your passport, right? So it's just very tricky. So you really need to pay it in advance. And some of these people, they're not very clued in, even the ones that work there. For example, today I was speaking to the lady, and she was telling me, "Oh, you're not late. You don't have to pay a multa." And I said, "Yes, I do." And she said, "No, you don't." I said, "Well, what's the rule?" She goes, and she started counting on her fingers, and then she says, "Well, you haven't been here for 3 months yet." And I said, "Yes, but my flight is this Saturday. So how long will I have been here this Saturday?" And then she started counting again, and she goes, "No, you're still under 3 months." I said, "How many days are in a month?" And she looked at me curious. I said, "There's 31 days in some months, isn't there? And the rule isn't 3 months, it's 90 days. You can't stay more than 90 days. So if I had taken her advice and said, 'Oh, great, I don't need to pay a multa,' I could have had major problems in the airport, and I don't think they would have been in the mood for listening to, 'Oh, it's not my fault. The lady in the immigration office told me this, that, and the other.'" Luckily, I insisted with her that I was late, because by the time of my flight, it would have been 91 days. Quite unlucky of me to have booked my return flight exactly 91 days. If I had booked it a day earlier, I could have saved myself $70 effectively. But anyway, that's the way it goes. So yeah, what I would recommend is kind of take it with a pinch of salt, what they're doing. Listen to this video, take that on board, understand the process. Don't get yourself in trouble when you get to the airport. Don't take any nonsense from people who really don't know what they're talking about. Go there, get your documents, go downstairs, and get your get your receipt showing that you've paid your multa, so you won't have any problems. Um, and then what I would also recommend is, if you're trying to kind of figure out, you've got your ticket in your hand at the beginning, and you're trying to figure out, well, look, I've been waiting for an hour. How much longer is this going to take? Well, it's actually easy enough to figure out. It doesn't show you on the screen, because basically what you look at, the letter that's at the beginning. Now, my letter was B, for example, and there was all sorts of other letters with different numbers after them, like there was K's and I's and O's and everything. But my letter was B. So what I noticed was that all the B's were happening sequentially. So maybe there would be B100, B101, B102, and then later on, and they come randomly. So there's other numbers and letters coming in, but the next B that appears, it would be B103, next one would be B104, and so on and so forth. So you get the picture. You kind of see, okay, my ticket says I'm a B number. The B's are happening sequentially, as in when they do appear on the screen, muddled in with the other letters. So what number am I? Let's say I was B. So my number was B 261. No, 267. That was my number, and I was looking, and when I first started looking at the screens, I didn't kind of figure this process out. But basically, I think we were on B1, around B100. So when I figured it out, I was like, wow, I've got to wait for there's 167 people or thereabouts that are ahead of me in the queue. So then I was like, okay, well, let me time how long it takes for us to get from here, how long 20 more B's would take. And I figured it out based on how things were going that day, and it turned out, I was thinking, wow, okay, 20 more B's takes that much time, okay. And then I was able to calculate from there that I would be there for at least, from the time I figured out the equation, sort of at least one more hour. And that would be sort of, if things were going kind of fast. But things can slow down depending on how many people there are. So you can kind of gauge it. So if you gauge it like that, you might say, well, look, the chances are I have an hour and a half, at very least, to go out and do something. So you might want to go, and you could go across the road or something like that and do something, have some coffee or something, I don't know, or go to the shop or whatever it is. But then again, as I say this, it's very risky, because you don't want to miss your ticket when it's called, because you have like literally a 2-minute window of time from the time your number appears on the screen to get to that booth. And if you're not there, you've missed the boat. So you want to kind of leave a good margin. Now, based on my calculations, I had estimated I had more than an hour, right? So, but in fact, it took 2 hours more after I calculated it. So an extra hour it took. So it took 2 hours extra in total from the point that I sort of figured this out. So I was there well in advance. But yeah, you just keep an eye on how those numbers are moving. But sometimes you get little bursts, like the numbers will just come like there'll be a cluster of B's that'll just knock through about 5 or 6, and then it'll be kind of quiet and you won't see anything for 10 minutes. And then, as all the other numbers are filling up the screen. So it's hard to say. It's not the most enjoyable day in the world. You're going to be in a very crowded space, watching a screen intently. It's not the most relaxing experience in the world, but it's better than being banned from the country for 5 years. So definitely worth doing it. As I say, if by the way, if you hear anyone telling you something like, oh, you know what, you don't need to go there, you can get it done in the police station, or you know what, you can just get it done in the airport. Though that the system's been changed a couple of years ago, so you cannot get it changed in the police station, you cannot get it changed in the done in the airport. You have to go to the one place in the country, which is in the city, the immigration office. You have to go there, and you have to pay your multa there. So hopefully you found this video enjoyable and useful, and if you did, give it a thumbs up, because I tell you what, before this morning I was searching for how, what's the process, and there's just such limited information there. So I just thought I've got to make this video now to help people out, because after having just been through that experience and really understanding it, and having actually watched some misinformation on YouTube with someone else telling you to get in a queue for a reception, which which goes all the way, snakes all the way around the building, just to get a little checklist. Someone else had made a video with false information on that. So what I want to do is clear up exactly what you're going to do, how long it's going to take, what it's going to cost, so that you guys can make sure that you've paid your multas, you've paid your fines before you leave for overstaying in Panama. So good luck with that, and good luck with the rest of your journey, and I hope you found the video useful. Take care. God bless. Bye bye.